What would you do if you found out your future son-in-law was secretly appraising your ranch, acre by acre? He just asked me for the 5th time, "Pops, exactly how many acres do we have here?" Right then, it clicked. This wasn't curiosity. This was a hunt, and I was the prey. But Alex made one fatal mistake. He thought I was just some senile old man sitting on a pile of cash. He had no idea he was picking a fight with an old wolf who spent his entire life guarding his territory, not once, not twice. This was the 5th time he'd set foot on my Texas ranch. Alex was standing by the kitchen window, clutching a mug of black coffee, eyes narrowed like he was running numbers. He wasn't looking at the view. He was staring right through those old oak trees, mentally subdividing my family's legacy into suburban lots. "I really think you should invest more to develop this place," he said, his voice casual, trying to sound like he actually cared. The first time I let it slide. The second time I brushed him off. But by the 5th time, my instincts as a former supply sergeant kicked into overdrive. That cold chill ran down my spine, a red flag for an abnormal pattern. My daughter, Emily, just laughed it off. "Dad, he's just impressed by the space." But she was too blinded to see that the shiny Rolex on his wrist was actually a countdown clock for my freedom. I'm a mechanical engineer. I believe in data points. And those 5 questions about the acreage, plus that predatory look in his eyes, drew a perfect straight line to a cold-blooded plan. Seize the land, grab my wife's insurance money, and rot me away in a nursing home. That night, after Alex left, I did what any veteran does when they spot the enemy. I started taking notes and setting the trap. Because this was no longer a story about a wedding. This was a survival standoff, and I was about to turn the hunter into the prey. 8 months ago, Emily brought Alex home for the first time. He's 32, a Dallas real estate investor, with a sparkling Rolex and a BMW M4 parked right in front of my weathered wooden porch. The contrast was a joke. Emily, 28, a city marketer, had fallen head over heels for his perfect romantic gestures, but I watched him. I saw his eyes sweep across the ranch like he was calculating the price per square foot. He asked about my life after my wife, Mary, passed away 2 years ago in an accident I can never forget. The question sounded like concern, but to me, it felt like a recon mission. He seemed too perfect. But what Alex didn't know, or chose to ignore, was that Mary left behind $1 million life insurance policy. Combine that with this land, worth $3 million, and I'm a high-value target. Just a lonely old man sitting on a gold mine. Back in the day, this place was out in the sticks. Now, developers are circling like vultures. I've had $1 million offers, but this is Mary's legacy. I can't sell her dream. Emily gets that. She grew up here, her tiny hands helping her mom plant vegetables and pick fruit. This ranch is the symbol of our love. But after her mom died, she wanted to run away from the grief. Alex, with his promises of a flashy city life, seemed like the perfect exit strategy. When she met him at a real estate event and they started dating, I tried to be happy for her. She deserved a win after breaking up with Ryan, the boy next door, a humble farmer who spent all his time studying new tech to improve crop yields. Ryan loved her for real, but Emily thought he lacked sophistication. He didn't pamper her the way her friends' boyfriends did. I still respect Ryan for his honesty. I told her to think twice, but Emily said I was being old-fashioned. The engagement happened fast. After just 3 months of dating, Alex popped the question with a massive diamond at a fancy restaurant in Dallas. Emily called me, her voice shaking with excitement. I said all the things a father should say. Congratulations. Sweetheart, I'm happy for you. But my sergeant's gut told me something was dead wrong. The wedding was set for mid-October. At first, Emily wanted it right here at the ranch, the place with the best memories of her mom. The place where Mary tended her roses and dreamed of seeing her daughter as a bride under the big Texas sky. She went all out hiring a planner, catering, sending invites to 150 people. Alex was always smiling, always helping with the prep. He even suggested we should expand the ceremony area by buying up the neighboring lots. "You know, Pops," he said on a sunny Saturday afternoon, "we could really open this place up if we cleared out those trees on the West Ridge." I told him those trees were the property markers. I dodged him when he asked for the exact square footage, just saying the ranch was enough for us. "Right," he nodded. "But seriously, how many more acres does your land actually cover?" There it was again. That question. I warned Emily, "Honey, Alex seems a little too interested in our assets. Ryan was a lot more genuine," but she brushed me off. Told me I was just being paranoid. One evening, during an intimate dinner at the ranch, Emily was buzzing, sharing her dreams with Alex. "You know, my mom always dreamed of expanding this place," she said, her eyes lit up. "Dad's actually planning to use her life insurance payout to buy the neighbor's land and make it happen." Right then, I caught a strange flicker in Alex's eyes blink, and you'd miss it. But my internal radar started screaming. He nodded, looking all concerned. "That's an incredible plan. But to manage an estate that size effectively and save on taxes, you really need a solid legal structure." That night, after they left, I sat in my office and pulled out the property deeds. Over 200 acres, bought in '94 with every penny we had. Now, this land is worth millions. I never told Emily the exact numbers. She knows we own the ranch debt-free, but she has no clue about the insurance money or the plan to fulfill her mother's dying wish. Later that night, I headed out to Mary's grave. The Texas air was bone-chilling. I sat by the headstone, tracing her name with my fingertips. The smell of damp earth and dry grass filled my lungs. In the silence, I whispered, "Mary, is it just me, or is Alex off? I'm terrified for Emily, but I don't know how to tell her without looking like the overbearing dad. I'm so alone in this, Mary. I wish you were here." See, in my engineering career, I built more than just a pension. My background in military logistics taught me how to invest smart and keep a tight grip on assets. Mary's $1 million policy is sitting right where it belongs, waiting for the perfect move. I've made a point of living small, driving a 10-year-old truck, wearing frayed jeans and flannel, fixing everything myself. It's better to be the quiet old farmer no one suspects. But now, Alex is starting to ask way too many questions. The next morning, I called Mike, an old Army buddy who's now a clerk at a local law firm. I decided to dig, but I wasn't going to play spy. I know my lane. "I need you to run a background check for me," I said. "Alex says he's a Dallas real estate investor." Mike sighed. "Robert, is this about Emily's fiancés?" "Just a precaution," I replied. "Precaution against what?" Mike pressed. I stayed silent. The answer was in the files on my desk, and I knew I was about to blow them wide open. "If you're worried, you should just talk to Emily," Mike added. "Not yet. I might be wrong, but my gut rarely misses. You don't manage thousands of military inventory lines and work as an engineer without demanding 100% accuracy." 3 days later, Mike called back. "Robert, we need to meet." In person, I drove to his office. He locked the door and slid a folder across the desk. On paper, Alex is exactly who he says he is. Licensed investor, clean record, no priors. But ... Mike pulled out another sheet. I had a friend dig deeper. Alex has been engaged twice before, once in Houston, once in Austin. Both times to daughters of families with massive land holdings. Both engagements ended abruptly right after he proposed, optimizing their family finances. No lawsuits, no formal charges, just a clean getaway. I finished. Mike explained that these wealthy families usually don't sue to avoid a public scandal, especially since they lack hard evidence. But Mike made some private calls. The first victim's father, a big-time contractor, revealed that Alex had been very curious about transferring land titles, a calculated pattern. I felt my grip tighten on the folder. The names stared back at me. Chloe, daughter of a contractor, and Mia, daughter of a CEO. Engagements that lasted a few months and died the second Alex got his hands on the assets. I knew our ranch was next. This family investment LLC, he was whispering in Emily's ear, was nothing but a trap to mortgage our legacy. But what really shook me wasn't just his past. Mike added, "Robert, I checked his recent transactions. Alex is drowning in debt." Mike slid a pawn shop receipt across the table. Rolex Submariner. $8,500. He sold his status symbol. That's a sign of desperation. And he's getting threatening calls from creditors. Mike looked at me, dead serious. A man desperate for cash is the most dangerous kind. He's got nothing left to lose.
I nodded, every nerve on edge. Mike had shown me the monster behind the mask, but I still didn't realize his plan was even darker than I imagined. He wasn't just after the money, he was risking Emily's entire future, and I knew when a beast is backed into a corner, it bites. But this time, I'd already set a trap that even the most desperate predator couldn't escape. But what about Emily? She doesn't have any assets, I mused. Mike hesitated. If Alex knows this ranch is actually worth $2.5 million, he's betting on the come-up. Or maybe he found out about Mary's policy through public records. Mike told me to come clean to Emily, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Not without ironclad proof. Emily was too happy, too swept up in the dream. I needed to be 100% sure. That weekend, Alex swung by. He parked his polished BMW at the entrance and strolled onto the porch like he owned the place, right where I was sitting, cleaning my old mechanical tools. "Pops, you got a few minutes?" Alex sat down, wearing that mask of deep concern. "Emily and I have been talking about the future. I was wondering, have you thought about a financial plan to make sure everything is squared away for her?" The blood in my veins turned to ice, but I kept my face stone cold. "I've got a will," I said simply. "That's great, but with an estate this size, you should really look into a family investment LLC. Under U.S. law, it's the most efficient way to manage assets, pooling the ranch's value and the insurance money. I'd act as the manager to optimize returns for the whole family." He leaned in, twisting the knife. "At your age, you need someone to help if something happens. A ranch is a lot of work for a man all on his own." There it was. The exact script he'd used on the others. I'd overheard him through the kitchen door before, but now, facing him directly, I felt a chill down my spine. This was a sophisticated, systematic financial ambush. "You might be onto something," I said slowly. "Next week, let's sit down. You can walk me through this LLC thing." Alex's eyes lit up. "Count on it, Pops." The second he pulled out of the driveway, I called Mike. "I need field evidence. I'm going to record every face-to-face conversation. Texas is a one-party consent state. It's all legal." Mike put me in touch with a friend in private security who helped me track Alex's movements. Then, on a Tuesday night, I got the smoking gun. Thanks to the tech they set up, I sat alone in my office, headphones on, and hit play. Alex's voice came through crystal clear. "Yeah, I'm back at the ranch playing the perfect son-in-law. The old man hasn't suspected a thing." Another male voice answered, "Marcus, his accomplice." "You sure about the value?" Alex scoffed. "Marcus, I've checked the county public records 3 times. Over 200 acres bought in '94 for dirt cheap. With the urban sprawl hitting from Dallas, this land is easily worth $2.5 million. Maybe more if we subdivide it right." Marcus asked about liquid cash, and Alex didn't skip a beat. "The old guy has to be loaded. Look at this ranch. 0 debt. He's retired, lives in frayed flannels, makes everyone think he's just a simple farmer. But I guarantee he's sitting on a massive investment portfolio, not to mention his late wife's $1 million policy. Emily is totally clueless. She thinks her dad is just some broke retiree." Marcus asked. "So what's the play?" Alex's voice turned triumphant. "Simple. I lure the old man into signing the family LLC agreement. Once I'm the manager, I have full authority to mortgage the ranch and that insurance money to the hilt. Then, I just wire the funds to some shell projects and vanish. The guy's lonely. A little accident, a fall, it happens so easily. Then Emily inherits whatever's left under my control. I'll drive her to Dallas in the old man's own rusted-out truck, paid for with his own money. Talk about irony, right? Marcus sounded hesitant. Sounds risky. You sure? Alex laughed. Never been surer. He's just a tired old farmer. This one is perfect. I clicked off the recording. I sat there in the dark, the headphones still on my ears, but the sound of my own heart pounding was louder than his disgusting words. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a raw, white-hot rage. He wasn't just after land. He was trying to grind everything Mary and I built into the dirt. But anger wasn't going to save Emily. I had to be smarter than I'd ever been. I called Mike and a lawyer for an emergency meeting. I had the legal recordings. Now, I needed a strategy. Sarah, a shark of an estate lawyer, nodded grimly after listening to the tapes. This is clear-cut financial conspiracy, she stated. We have enough to go to the cops right now. Mike, his face tight, slid a folder toward me. I've analyzed it. The LLC structure he's proposing is a perfect cage. Your signature gives him total power to mortgage the ranch without ever asking you. I shook my head. No, I want him to unmask himself at his own wedding. We spent 2 weeks prepping the ultimate trap. Sarah pointed out the lethal clause in Alex's proposal. The manager shall have sole discretion to encumber assets. Mike confirmed Alex was drowning in debt and desperate for a payout. They helped me deconstruct every move G was making, confirming he intended to bleed us dry. I played the role of the trusting father-in-law to perfection. I called Alex over to finalize the family LLC. He walked into my office with a briefcase full of financial forms and a smile that made my skin crawl. All right, Pops, I've got the paperwork ready to simplify everything. This LLC agreement will let me take the load off your shoulders if you ever need to rest. And this clause right here? It'll merge Mom's insurance money into the investment fund to really maximize the growth. I pretended to study the pile of documents. Does this really save on taxes? Absolutely, you could save tens of thousands of dollars. I nodded slowly. You know, Alex, I've been thinking. You're right, this place is starting to get to be too much for me. Maybe it's time for some changes. A triumphant spark lit up his eyes. I'm so glad you're being realistic, Pops. You keep asking about the size and the borders. Dad, how many acres is our ranch? Why is that? He didn't even flinch. Just long-term calculations, Pops. If we can invest more to develop it, we could sell off a few peripheral lots for capital and keep the main house. There's no point in hoarding land we aren't using. We? I mean Emily and I. As her husband, I want to help her make the smartest financial decisions possible. I smiled, but my heart was ice cold, seeing him repeat the exact pattern I had uncovered. I smiled back. Of course, family helps family. He left that day thinking he had won. I let him believe it. A week before the wedding, Emily noticed I seemed distracted. She stopped on the porch, coffee mug in hand, eyes filled with worry. Dad, are you okay? I looked out into the distance. I just miss your mom. And that wasn't entirely a lie. Emily put the cup down and hugged me. I know. I miss her too. In that moment, I almost spilled everything. But I knew Emily needed to see the truth for herself. If not, she'd always wonder, did Dad ruin my happiness just because he didn't like Alex? 5 days before the big day, while Alex was standing on the living room balcony, Emily happened to walk back in to grab a phone she'd forgotten. She froze behind the half-closed door when she heard Alex whispering on the phone, a cold, calculating tone totally different from his usual sweetness. He was talking to Marcus about the shell projects being ready and just waiting for my signature to drain the family assets through the LLC trap. Everything's set. Alex whispered triumphantly into the receiver. Once the old man signs as manager, this ranch is in our pockets. Emily hasn't a clue. She's too busy with dresses and flowers. After this, we'll vanish before the old guy even knows what hit him. Emily felt her heart stop. Every whisper was like poison in her ear, turning the man she planned to spend her life with into a total stranger. She didn't rush in to confront him. Survival instinct kicked in. She quietly backed away, her legs trembling as she walked out of the house. Emily drove like a ghost straight to the ranch, collapsed in my arms, and sobbed. Through her agonizing pain, she stammered out the brutal truth she'd just overheard. We spent those last 3 days in a terrifying silence. Every time Alex called with that sweet voice, I saw Emily clench her fists until her knuckles turned white. She was growing up, bitterly, but with a new strength. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder, her breath still shaky after the long cry. I let her stay silent for a moment, feeling the warmth of my only daughter, before I softly asked, "Do you believe me now, Emily?" She looked up at me, eyes red with regret. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I thought you were being too hard on him. I thought you didn't want me to be happy." I was so blinded by the flowery words that I forgot the person who loves me most is the one who sees the cracks behind the gloss. I rubbed her head, my voice dropping low. "I didn't want to ruin your dream, but I couldn't watch you walk into a trap that was already set. You're stronger than you think, Emily. You heard the truth yourself, and you'll be the one to end it." Emily wiped her tears, her gaze turning steely, that stubborn look she inherited from Mary. "Dad, we can't let him keep hurting people. I want him to pay right where he planned to pull off the biggest scam of his life." I smiled, the cold smile of an old soldier who had locked onto his target. Exactly what I was thinking. We're going to show him that folks on a Texas ranch might be simple, but they aren't easy to fool. That's when we officially started our final plan. Step 1. Move the wedding venue from the ranch to a high-end steakhouse in Dallas, Alex's home turf, where he felt most confident, but in reality, it was the perfect ambush site I had rigged with the help of Sheriff Miller. I called Alex to the ranch, looking visibly moved. "Alex, I've thought it over. A ranch wedding is too simple. It doesn't fit your status. Emily deserves a grand wedding so your friends and colleagues can see. We're moving it to that upscale steakhouse in Dallas, 150 guests. I want my daughter to be proud, and I want my son-in-law to show the class he deserves." Alex's eyes lit up. "You really think so? I'm so glad you see how important this is, Pops. A high-class wedding will help Emily fit into the Dallas elite much better." I looked over at Emily. A flicker of hesitation crossed her eyes when she heard about the Dallas wedding, away from her mother's ranch. But then she looked at Alex, the bright smile returned, and she nodded. In that nod, I saw the hunger for acceptance and a blindness that made my heart ache. He had no idea that this was the ultimate psychological trap, a lure designed to play on his massive ego and his desperate hunger for status. I forced him to foot the bill for an extravagant wedding, sinking him deeper into a hole of debt and desperation, all while he thought he was making a down payment on my millions. I called Alex to the ranch one more time to drop the final bait. "Alex, I'm getting old, and Emily is all I have," I said, putting on my best trusting old man face. "During the reception, after the vows, I'm going to announce the full transfer of the estate to her through that LLC you suggested. I want this to be the happiest day of your lives." I paused, looking him dead in the eye with fake sincerity. "I've got $7,000 in cash from selling cattle last month. Take it. Use it for the deposits at the steakhouse. As for the rest of the venue costs, I have to pull that from my 401k and the paperwork takes a week. Can you cover the upfront costs for me? I'll pay you back every cent, with interest." Alex hesitated for a split second when he realized the bill for a high-end Dallas wedding wasn't exactly pocket change. But he ran the numbers fast. A few grand now versus a $3 million ranch and $1 million payout later? It was a no-brainer. He agreed instantly, looking smug that he'd finally won my trust. To pay for the world-class wedding I demanded, he went out and took high-interest loans and pawned that Rolex for good. He had no clue he was taking the final step toward his own total ruin. I spotted the accomplice immediately from the surveillance photos, Marcus. He was holed up at a downtown Dallas hotel, acting as the best. I watched them at the rehearsal dinner the night before, laughing and clinking glasses. Alex even stood up for a toast. To Pops for welcoming me into the family. Tomorrow is going to be a perfect day. Everyone cheered. I raised my glass and smiled quietly, my mind running a final diagnostic on the ambush site. Wedding day. The Texas autumn air was crisp and the sun flooded through the massive glass windows of that Dallas steakhouse. Mary would have been so proud if she were here. All 150 seats were filled. Friends, family, and Sheriff Miller, an old town buddy, sitting in plain clothes scattered among the guests. I walked Emily down the aisle, my heart aching for Mary. In the corner of the room I saw Ryan. He was there as Emily's best friend. His eyes were heavy with sadness, but there wasn't a drop of bitterness, just a quiet, protective gaze, making sure the girl he once loved was actually going to be okay. I gave him a small, knowing nod. Emily and I shared a look of pure steel, pain mixed with absolute resolve. She looked breathtaking in white, wearing her mother's pearl necklace. She knew everything. We had agreed we were going to burn his world down right here to make sure there would never be another victim. "You're so strong, Emily," I whispered. I handed her over to Alex and said, "Alex, I'm trusting you with her. Take care of my girl." Alex gave a forced smile, his eyes darting away from the piercing stare of an old soldier. The ceremony began. The preacher started in on a sermon about love and devotion. Alex stood there, looking perfect in his designer suit, a confident smirk on his face like the ranch was already in his pocket. Then came the vows. When the preacher asked, "Alex, do you take Emily to be your wife?" he answered loud and clear, "I do." But when it was Emily's turn, she just gave a thin, sharp smile. "I actually have a little surprise for everyone first," she signaled her maid of honor. Instantly, the massive TV screens around the restaurant roared to life. A video began to play. A montage of my legal recordings, the predatory LLC documents, Alex's history of fraud, and the cherry on top, the pawnshop receipt for the Rolex, and the threatening texts from his debt collectors. The room exploded. People were screaming. Alex went into a full-blown panic, his handsome face twisting into a mask of pure terror. He lunged, screaming, "Turn it off, it's all lies." He lost it, charging toward Emily to strike her, but I stepped in front of my daughter before he could even blink. Shoulders squared, eyes cold with the lethal calm of a man who's seen real combat. "Enough, Alex, game over." Right then, Sheriff Miller stood up from his table, his badge flashing in the light. "Alex, I'm Sheriff Miller. We received a formal complaint and a mountain of evidence 3 days ago. You have the right to remain silent." At the same time, Mike and the security team I'd hired blocked the exits, cutting off any hope for Alex or Marcus to run. What happened next was a beautiful kind of chaos. Alex was tackled and cuffed right there on the floor. He was screaming about countersuits, but his voice was drowned out by the gasps of the guests and the clicking of handcuffs. The lavish wedding turned into a crime scene. As they dragged him out, Alex completely collapsed, realizing he hadn't just lost the ranch. He was facing the debt collectors waiting for him on the other side of those doors. Emily stood by my side, tears streaming down her face, but her shoulders finally looked light, like a massive weight had been lifted. She hugged me tight amidst the ruins of a wedding that never even started. "You saved yourself, Emily," I whispered, holding her close. "You're so strong. I'm proud of you. You saved your future. And you saved your mother's legacy." I thought maybe it was just a misunderstanding. That was why Emily had stayed silent those last few days, going through the motions of the wedding prep, only making her final call right there at the altar. I looked into her eyes and saw the terror mixed with regret. "I was scared," she sobbed. "I was terrified that I was wrong, that I'd ruin everything over a mistake. But standing there, about to say I do, I realized I couldn't. I couldn't marry a man I no longer trusted." I held her tighter. "I know. I've known for months." Emily froze. "You knew?" "I suspected him a long time ago and had Mike dig into his past. I have every recording of his scheme with Marcus. Even if you hadn't spoken up, I was never going to let that ceremony end without unmasking him." Emily looked at me, her voice trembling. "Why didn't you just tell me sooner?" "Because you wouldn't have believed me. You would have thought I was just an old-fashioned, controlling father who didn't trust your judgment. You had to discover the truth for yourself. You had to reach your own conclusion. I was just there to be your safety net." Emily buried her head in my shoulder. "I feel so stupid." "You're not stupid. You're someone who sees the good in people. That's a gift, not a flaw. Alex is a professional predator. He's done this to families in Houston and Austin before. You weren't the first. And you definitely weren't going to be the last if we didn't stop him." "What happens now, Dad?" "Now the district attorney takes over. Alex and Marcus face the music. We handle the gift returns. We apologize to the guests, and life goes on." We sat in silence for a long time on the porch of the ranch. Then Emily asked softly, "Dad, How rich are we really? I gave a small laugh. Why do you want to know? Because Alex kept saying you were loaded. I always thought we were just getting by like everyone else. Your mom and I bought this place for $80,000 in '94. Now with the sprawl from Dallas, it's worth about $2.5 million. Then there's Mom's $1 million policy, plus my engineering patents and investments over the last 30 years. Total assets, somewhere around $8 million. Emily was stunned. $8 million? And you still drive that beat-up truck? Still wear jeans from the discount store? Money doesn't impress me, Emily. Your mom and I grew up with nothing. I've seen how money poisons families. We chose to live small, to enjoy what we have without letting wealth define us. I wanted you to grow up as a normal girl, not some rich kid who thinks she's better than everyone else. And your inheritance? I set that up in a bulletproof trust managed by a family LLC years ago. No husband can ever touch a cent of it without your clear consent. I did that to protect you, long before Alex ever showed up. 2 months later, I joined the previous victims in taking Alex to a Texas court. With the solid evidence from Mike and my legal recordings, Alex and Marcus were convicted of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit bank fraud, and fraudulent asset transfer. Alex took a plea deal. 5 years probate, full restitution for the investigation costs, and a lifetime ban from the financial services industry. He's drowning in debt now. And here's the secret Alex will never know. I secretly bought up his debt. Every month he has to write a check to me at a legal interest rate for the rest of his life. Justice served. But sometimes I wonder, am I just another predator now, just with a legal face? Emily came back to the ranch to heal, and Ryan, the humble guy who never left her side, was there for her. 6 months later, they had a small, simple wedding right here. They used Mary's insurance money to buy the extra land, finally making her dream a reality. As for me, I'm still the same man in the frayed flannel shirt. I expanded Mary's garden and put in a stone bench with her name on it. One afternoon, Emily sat next to me and asked, "Do you ever regret not telling me about the money sooner?" I looked at her. Maybe. But if you'd known, you wouldn't have learned this. Money is for protection, not for show. It can't buy trust, but it can buy the peace of mind to protect the people you love. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. I love you, Dad. In that Texas sunset, I finally felt at peace. Mary would be proud. Standing here in the quiet of this ranch, I still ask myself, was I too cruel to set that trap? Or was that just the fair price a predator has to pay? What about you? If you were in my shoes, what would you choose? A direct confrontation to warn your child immediately, or would you silently set the trap to make sure the villain never has the chance to hurt anyone else again? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective. If Emily's journey helped you spot the red flags behind the glitz, share this story to protect the ones you love. Hit subscribe to explore the thin line between love and manipulation with us. Every connection you make is a light of awareness, guarding what's truly sacred, family. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next story.